Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. I go by One Cheap Compadre, and you're watching Cheap Stocks TV, where on my channel we talk about savings, investing, and even politics. So this morning, I had an opportunity to listen to NPR, and then I have to tell you, I was very disappointed in the coverage relating to reparations. Majority of their news was targeted towards what's going on in Gaza and with the Palestine and Israel. And basically, what I have to say about that is that Israel is not part of NATO. It is actually part of the UN. And basically, the whole purpose behind the UN is to have countries come together and try to work out and come up with solutions to problems. Now, NATO, on the other hand, is for security reasons, for allies and military support, which Ukraine and Israel are receiving right now, which they should not be receiving any support. Countries can come together and come up with solutions, but when it comes to military and aid through NATO, that is a no-no. And basically, for them to be asking for the U.S. help uh, should be only a thought, not an action at this point in time until they come a part of NATO. So for those who are into foreign policy, they should know that they should not be receiving any aid from the U.S. right now. And for those who say that Black Americans should not receive reparations, that they should receive programs and they should receive jobs, and we're using polls of a population that is opposed to reparation is pretty much something that should not be accepted, because how can you have any news talking about reparations and there's no one actually talking about the reasons and the purpose and what could come out of reparations? How can you have a one-sided report stating people going around talking about uh, they should be fighting for civil rights and they should not be in support. People should not be in support of reparations, and that there's polls. But I'm here to tell you, where are the polls when it comes to financing and helping out Ukraine or helping out Israel? Where are the polls there? I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people who are opposed to their money going towards Israel and Ukraine, but yet they're still receiving backing. Now, let's get back to reparations, because this is very important, how media, radio, and media and social media have an agenda. And what they're trying to push is that when it comes to reparations, they want to push this narrative of no one is in support of it. And I'm pretty sure there's some people who are in support of it. Why are we not talking about those who are in support of reparations? Why are we only focused on polls that are against it and people going around the U.S. in oppose of it? But what about people who are in support of it and what it really represents? Because those who are naysayers and those who are opposed it are trying to push this whole idea of programs for Blacks, civil rights for Blacks, and jobs. What, you forgot we already have, majority of us have jobs already, and we're at the bottom of the wealth poll. Any poll, you can do your research. You can find out any poll. And when it comes to Blacks, they are at the bottom of every poll, people. So how long are we going to be in support of civil rights? And how long are we going to be in support of voting rights? Like I keep saying every video, Ever since the late 1800s during Reconstruction, they implement amendments stating that those who are now free, those who are slaves and who are black, are now able to vote. Even though, yeah, they had poll taxes and literacy tests to intimidate black voters, but yet they still voted. And then in the 1960s, they put in a law, 1965 Act, Voting Rights Act of 1965, that stated that those who implemented poll tax and literacy tests would no longer uh, to be used to stop people from voting. So you mean to tell me we still are talking about voting rights and civil rights in 2024? We still talking about this? Even Martin Luther King, before he was assassinated, changed his mind and focused on getting a actual check when it came to Black Americans. He actually wanted a check before he died. He changed his mind and he realized that it's more than just fighting for civil rights and being equal, that we deserve an actual check. And he specifically say that look up and find out his videos, and you'll find out before he passed away that was his main objective after the Civil Rights March, which led to the 1964 Equal Rights Act and then the 1965 Voting Rights Act. And we still talking about civil rights and voting rights to this very day. So how long are we going to focus on that? I mean, what, we're going to be talking about this 20 years from now when there's another election, and we're going to be putting fear in us and having us focus on things that really not going to benefit us, but going to keep us at the bottom. Why are we not doing news on those who are in support of reparations, NPR? Why are we not uh, having their voices being heard? Because there's much more to reparations. Slavery is just one reason for reparations. There's many reasons for reparations. Do I actually need to break it down to you and make it better in simpler terms so you can understand? Well, basically, let's start with the slaves who freed their slaves. They received reparations for freeing their slaves. Each slave they free was $300. In today's 2024 standard, we're talking probably millions, almost billions of dollars. That alone. And then we have slavery. After slavery, during Reconstruction, the free men were given plots of land. It was called 40 acres and a mule. It wasn't promised. They were actually given this land. But once Lincoln was assassinated, and everyone knows this, Johnson, who was a Democrat, became president and allowed for the slave owners to receive their land back. So it wasn't promised. It was a given. It was taken back. Then after that, we have situations which allow more wealth for whites and Europeans. It was known as the Homestead Act. 1.5 million whites, along with Europeans, received plots of land out west. Only 6,000 of blacks received it. Then we have Native Americans who received the Dawes Act, plots of land if they can show that they're able to assimilate into American culture. Then we have the Seminole Wars, the Trails of Tears, which Native Americans, the five tribes, had slaves, and they also fought in the Civil War on the Confederate side, which eventually they ended up receiving benefits in Oklahoma, and they didn't want to share the benefits with the free man. And then we had whites who created the Great Depression. Remember Black Tuesday Society? Roosevelt came in a new president, and he decided to implement programs that help majority whites. And it was known as the New Deal, right? We had programs at unemployment, right? That was used to help people get back on their feet and money back in their hands, right? That's another way of receiving some form of reparations. And let's not forget about the GI Bill of Rights that majority white veterans after World War II received. And what did they receive? They received unemployment, they received free education, they received property with low interest rates, and they also received money to start a business. So I'm not done yet. There's other groups that receive a form of reparations. You have the Japanese Americans who were put into internment camps during World War II, who ended up losing their rights as citizens, and they received reparations due to Ronald Reagan putting it in as a way to show their remorse. In Florida, we have those who receive reparations due to the Rosewood massacre. Many of these descendants receive free funding for college. And then, not only that, we have the war on drugs, right? In the 1970s, due to Nixon, who decided to start rounding up blacks and minorities and put them in jail for petty crimes dealing with drugs. And it all the way went from Nixon. And we also have Clinton with his three-strike law. Remember that? So it's not just slavery that's a issue. There's many other issues. You can't forget about redlining, right? The white flight into the suburbs that left everyone else in the cities to suffer, right? So there's many reasons, right? Since many whites went to the suburbs and blacks couldn't and weren't allowed to own their own property back then, right? Many of them had to rent and couldn't afford a home or couldn't be allowed to receive access to a home in the suburbs, right? So it's not just slavery. Slavery is just one reason for reparations. You had slavery, you had the freeing of the slaves, you had sharecropping, you had black codes, you have uh, a Homestead Act, you had the New Deal, you even had the Great Society were supposed to help out those who were in need because of the Vietnam War at the time. So they pretty much didn't get so much help as they were trying to do in the beginning. So there's many reasons for blacks receiving reparations. And let's not forget about eminent domain. And let's not forget about many black communities throughout the US that were burned down in the early 1900s. Did you forget? I know I didn't. So put a comment down below and push this to NPR to let them know that there's more to it than just the naysayers and the polls from Berkeley and the populations. Because in California, the population is mostly dominated by whites and Asians. Remember, blacks only make up 14% of the whole country. So yes, you're going to have people who are against it. But in their heart of heart, they know that this needs to be done and it's long overdue. How can we move forward if we don't correct the past and we don't hold people accountable for what happened in the past? Because many of these things still go on today. Have you looked at the uh, prison system, right? How many people are black? Majority are black that are in the prison system more than any other group. Have you forgot about that? So slavery hasn't gone that far. Remember, the 13th Amendment specifically states that you are free unless you are committed of a crime. So once you are committed, you are found guilty. Guess what? You lost all of your rights as a citizen. So put a comment down below. Share this with NPR because they need to do a much better job of representing the whole idea of reparations, because right now is so much bias and skewed towards those who are against it. What about those who are in support of it? What about those who actually have a comprehensive plan And when I say comprehensive, I'm not talking about programs, I'm not talking about jobs, and I'm not talking about loans. I'm talking about those who believe that we should receive land, property, cash payments, and payments yearly, and free healthcare, medical and dental, and a free education, a college education, room and board, and money to start a business entrepreneur. And I'm not talking about mom and pop stores. I'm not talking about hair places. I'm not talking about barbecue places. I'm talking about Silicon Valley. Blacks should have their own Silicon Valley, and they should have engineers and people who want to push their own AI and their own Silicon Valley communities where they can create their own innovation technology to help them push and support and allow them to be independent where they don't have to depend on someone else for jobs. They can create their own. So put a comment down below, share this with NPR because NPR needs to know that what they're pushing right now is an agenda, and they need to have uh, on both sides of the argument for and against reparations. Spend less time on Gaza and less time on Israel, and they're begging for money from the US because they're not even part of NATO. And we all know this, and we all need to hold them accountable and America accountable for what they're doing and their lack of their sensitivity towards the Black American who helped grow American economy.